which is called the modern phase, which is called the modern phase. Um, and which has witnessed a lot of writings based on realism. So, what is this modern age and what is realism that we are going to do broadly today? And we'll focus upon the modern writer during this phase, and one of the writings also, just like we did yesterday. Today, we are going to see in broad detail the novel The Tree of Man, written by Patrick White. And in my earlier classes, I have told you Patrick White is a Nobel Prize winner. So he had a very typical kind of writing, a kind of awakening for the rest of the Australian citizens, which is why he is regarded as one of the most eminent Australian writers of all time. So, what makes him such a highly regarded writer, that we shall see. So, to start with, I'll go a little bit behind to to remind you that we have already done what happened in the early 19th century, early 19th century literature, and how gradually Australia established its identity, how they were very much stuck to their culture and tradition in their writings, that we shall discuss. Okay, and then gradually, after the initiation of the writing, Australian writers, after they initiated their writing, we see how a new consciousness developed in them gradually, and that led them to the era of realism. Okay, so this idea of realism was very much instilled in their mind. Okay, instead of doing a lot of writing on romantic concerns or romanticisms, they focused more on their writings based on realism. Okay, and this Australian realism is also known as the bush culture, the bush literature, that we shall see what is that. But overall, I can tell you that in my previous classes, I've been discussing about indigenous Australians. So these writings, this bush culture, were very much related to indigenous culture. They were they were rooted to the hardships, difficulties faced by the Australians. So that is what is bush culture, but we'll be dealing with that more in my coming lines. I'll be discussing that with you. So here we see that uh, you know from the early writings of Australian writers, that is, from the uh, early 19th centuries, or you can say as they moved along to the end of 19th century, when they were fighting for the federation. During those times, they always rejected what was romantic and what was romantic identity, and they always embraced the realism in the literature. Okay, so, like yesterday, I was discussing with you Joseph Murphy's Such is Life. Okay, then Helen Spencer's Clara Morrison. All these are very much stuck to realism. Even what we saw yesterday, mm, the novel that we discussed yesterday, that was also very much based on realism and realistic, issues of their life. Now, the researchers, the scholars, those who were deeply studying Australian literature, they also marked that slowly, Australian literature is moving, with respect to their theme. All right, from the early 20th century, from the movement of the century, the writers and their perspectives were changing. Okay, when they were very much stuck to the element of realism, slowly, when modernism was very much predominant in the European countries, Australian writers also witnessed industrialization and development in terms of modernism. So in their writings also, they added a little bit of flavor of modernism, which was based on the realistic perspectives. Now, I can give you some of the examples of this kind of writing. Um, uh, of the realism, and you can see a lot of modernist writing. Examples can be William Lane's The Working Man's Paradise, that was published in 1892. Then Christina Steeds, she's a writer. She had written Seven Poor Men of Sydney. It was published in 1934. Ruth Parks, a novel The Harp in the South, was published in 1948. Okay, so all these novels, they talked about the difficulties, the problems, the harsh realities of existence of the working class people of that time. And Patrick White, that we'll be discussing now, his novel Tree of Man, published in 1955, and VOSS, that was published in 1957, both written by Patrick White. They were considered as classics. And in 1973, Patrick White wins the Nobel Prize in Literature. Okay, so you can understand how important, how significant is Patrick White's novels. Okay, because it fetched him Nobel Prize. Now, what is this aspect of realism that we shall see? So, realism, was very much new, very much different from what we see realism in Europe and United States. Okay, we see here realism, came to very much in vogue in Australia during the last decades of 19th century. Okay, when all these immigrations had stopped, all people who are getting into the country had stopped, when British have already gone, when Australia had completely settled down, and when the natives, now when the natives started writing, they emerged in Australia. So this was the phase when they experimented with realism. Okay, so when we see Europe or US, then in terms of realism, it was a movement. It was very spontaneous, but this was not so in case of Australia. Australia had its own, method of identifying realism. Okay, it was very much away from what you call conventions. Okay, and so these realisms, these aspects, that they appeared in English novel written by Australian writers. Okay, so this was the second phase of Australian writing. Earlier phase was written during colonial times. Okay, when they mostly diverted their perspectives on murder, revenge, mystery, and supernaturalism. But uh, in the second phase, they came very much to realism, or you may call this phase as the phase of nationalism and bush realism. Okay, the second phase may also be termed as nationalism or bush realism. So, novel writing was mainly dominated by these perspectives. So, it was during this period only, this second phase, when Lawson experimented with bush realism. And he was able to, Lawson was only writer, one of those unique writers who was able to link bush realism, okay, with the hardships of Australian lives, how Australian mass suffered. That was very much clearly depicted by initially by Lawson. Okay, and it was also during this time when a very prolific writer called Barbara Bainton started writing stories. And as she was a woman, she started writing from the perspective of woman in the bush. So bush actually means the hardships, the troubles, okay, the pain that these Australians had to endure, okay, the cruelty they had to face at the hands of the men, okay, in the bush. So her stories are mainly the squeaker's mate. Okay, the squeaker's mate. But if you talk about generally about the bush realism, then Lawson is the most persistent voice. Okay, a very loud and clear voice. And in many of his writings, he had very clearly written, very, very impartially. He has depicted the pain and suffering of the people of that time. And Lawson was very famous through 1940s and 50s. Okay. Now, you must see how you must understand very clearly how Australian modernism came into being, and how it was a little bit different in its focus. Now, dear learners, it is already 1920s and 1930s. Okay, and writers are very much prolifically and clearly explaining how peculiar Australia is. Okay, how Australian society is unique, how it is different from any other society. These By this time, the writers were very broadly they were writing about these aspects. Okay, now. And now it was time when Australian natives were frantically searching for their identities. Okay, after this 1920s and 30s, people and Australian were very much excited, very much passionate to know about their identities in the society, in the world. Okay, and they wanted to show how Australia stands as an essence of essence of good writing, good literature, that will at the same time reflect their culture and tradition. So at this time, uh, two types of writings came into vogue: the modernists and the vitalists. Okay, these are the two methods of writing that came into existence during this time. Now, you will see that that during this phase, after this 1920s, when we go to 19 and 30s, you will see this period was the most important period on Australian literature after war. Okay, and after industrialization, how writing varied, how writing was significant during this time, when war was over and when industrialization has also taken place. So here you will see the different novels that appear, and appear during this phase, and during this time these novels were able to direct their focus upon the uncertainties of modern world. Okay, so now novels were very much directed towards modern living, modern lifestyle, but there were uncertainties, there were insecurities. So how these writers depicted insecurities and uncertainties comprises of the modernist type of writing in the Australian domain. And how how people were depicted in this city life was now the major concern of the modernist writers. So they depicted the affair of war, they showed how depression was there in the societies, how industrialization led to alienation of of individualistic societies. So there were a lot of issues, just like European and American countries, that Australian writers thought to address in their writings. Okay, so if you see Australia's literary response, you can see that mainly what is the main difference between a European and American modernism and Australian modernism is that Australian writing, modernist writing, were mainly towards indigenous identities. Okay, which was always connected to their tradition and experiences. Okay, they always wrote about how unique their position was in relation to other Western world. Okay, and how each personal identity was important in contributing the whole national identity. Okay, so they focused more on their indigenous writings. They paid much importance to indigenous writings, where in other countries, you will see Aboriginal indigenous identities are peripheral writings, whereas in Australia, you will find these Aboriginal or indigenous writings are the mainstream writings. Okay, so in modern times, there were writers who saw that changes were very fast. society was changing very rapidly. Okay, and people were accepting these changes very fast, despite the troubles, despite hardships, but they were accepting it overall. Okay, so these writers, they created their writings, their stories, which were not just simple work of modernism, modern imagination, but they wrote from the point of view of the modern world, how and where Australia stands, okay, in the modern world. This was the main perspective to capture in their novels. All right. So they were talking about change everywhere in the society, how material life was getting importance in society. So that also they had in their mind while they wrote modernist novels. Okay, and uh, you know uh, this was their overall perspective when they started writing, when they thought about modernist writings. Okay. Now, what is vital literature? I shall tell you. There were production of vital literature at that time. I have already told you, and there were not only literature but art forms were also known as vitals at that time. Okay, because Australia at that time was known to be a brave new world. Okay, so many Australian writers, they saw this period. mm uh, as historically significant. They knew that this period is going to be historically very important and significant in the Australian context. So they have already seen that Australia had already suffered war. Okay, it had already suffered colonialism. Now they need to strengthen their distinctive culture. Okay, they know that our culture is distinct, it is very different, it is very unique. Now it was their responsibility, mainly the responsibility of the literary writers, to try to preserve their unique culture, to hold on to their unique culture. Okay. But at the same time, when they were writing about their culture, when they were aware of preserving their culture, then they had their doubts also, that uh, what was new, what was vital about Australia. Okay, that could, that could withstand the collapse of Europe. Maybe if Europe is collapsing, but Australia will survive. So what was vital, what was very important, what was very significant for Australia, they try to search for that. Okay, they try to uphold that part of their culture. Okay, so but overall, these writers were very positive. Okay, Australian culture now took its proper shape and form. Uh, they also at the same time modernism came, but their own culture, their own tradition was very, optimistically preserved by them. They try to keep up with their culture, okay, despite the ravages of war and colonial impact. And through their writings, they were successful in doing that. And that is what is the vital aspects in the novel. Now we'll go on to see what is exactly bush tradition, which I have already explained in brief, and I'll go a little broad now. So you see that at that time, when Australia had already gained the federation, so now it was the task, it was the duty of each Australian citizen to preserve or to spread their tradition. Okay. The colonial tradition was already too high in their society. So not only that, they wanted not to lose their own culture and tradition. Okay, but with time, you saw that the whole social environment in the late 19th century and early 20th century have changed. Okay, and there were earlier writings where exact replication of their own culture was little bit shaky, because when the colonial rule was there, Australian writers were very much influenced by the colonial writers. So they had adapted a bit of their style of writing. So now, after independence, after the federation, they wanted to have their own, to re-establish their own cultural identity. Okay, so you can see that early writers during colonial period were Alan Lindsay Gordon. Uh, okay, then Banjo Patterson, Henry Lawson was also there. So they try to draw these traditions in their verse and poetry writing. They wrote poetry and they wrote, um, mm, you know, uh, prose also. Okay, but yesterday we were discussing about the bulletin, the magazine that came into being. Okay, that saw the bush and the cultural creation that needed to be characteristically identified in the Australian domain. Okay, so they understood that, writers, few writers understood that they have to write about their tradition, about their culture. So Australian short fiction developed through the centuries, which try to showcase their own tradition and culture. Okay, so although they wrote different kinds of writings, they wrote short fictions, novels, biographies, autobiographies, and annals even. So at that time, you can see that there were men, educated men and women, who wanted to write about their immediate landscape. All right, who felt it a need to write about their own landscape. They wanted to, they had the urge to write about their home country, the environment of their own homeland. They wanted to write about their own seasons. And Australia, is rich in flora and fauna. They wanted to write about that. They wanted to write about the local inhabitants of that place. Okay, so they wanted these to be the main themes. So you will see that within this vast body of writing, you see how these people are promoting immigration in their land. Okay, and many other writers, you will see at the same time, they are not encouraging immigrants. They are harsh, they are hostile, and they don't accept immigrants. Okay, so anyway, when we talk about early settlers in that land, okay, early settlers also, just like immigrants, to some extent they had faced a lot of adversities, harshness. Okay, they saw that the natural habitat was very much foreign to them, but still they settle with time. Okay, so slowly they settle, and also they hope for the development. All right. So, if you see this kind of historical background in the writings of the novel, then you will find that there are four phases. Okay, that traces the development of novel throughout this time. Okay, there were four phases that helped in the development of the genre of novel writing. The first phase you may call the colonial phase. Okay, the first phase is the colonial phase, and this colonial phase lasted until the early years of 1890s. Okay, till 1890s you see colonial phase lasted. So here you can see that during this phase, as I already told you, when there was sheer colonial rule, so Australian writers also had lot of influence of European, particularly British model of writing. Okay, so this is the first phase. Second phase is when you see national awareness, when you see people were getting aware of their own nation. Okay, naturally, nationalism is arising, love towards the own country and the sentiments such like was getting lot of promotion and lot of highlight. So and the thing that I taught you yesterday, uh, that was actually the third phase. But you know, no, earlier to this is the second phase when national awareness came into being. Before this, prior to this, during colonial times, the writing and that perspectives were mainly limited to murder, revenge, mystery, supernaturalism, and women's romance was also there. Okay, but in the second phase, you see a lot of nationalism that we were seeing yesterday. Okay, and this nationalism is what is also called Bush realism. Okay, so Bush realism dominated the second phase of Australian writing. So this was the time when Lawson wrote, and the Bush became, completely linked with each other, and the bush became the symbol of hardships of the Australian people. Okay, and how Australian people had endured these difficulties. That is what is bush narrative. And then you see Barbara Binton. She also wrote bush narrative, but from the point of view of women. She showed how women are facing hardship during the dominance and cruelty of men. Okay, so this is the bush narrative from the woman point of view. The name of the book is The Squeaker's Mate. Okay, so um, but this was an exception. Overall, you see, Lawson is the most eminent figure here in writing bush realism. Okay, and till 1940s and 50s, Lawson was vastly read and accepted, and his writing comes under the bush narratives, where he broadly talks about the suffering of the people of the time. Now, about realism and realistic novel, we had done yesterday, like Joseph Furphy's, we have discussed, such is life. So, these are the realism based on the harsh realities of contemporary society that was discussed by, broadly discussed by Furphy in Such is Life. Okay. So you can see Henry Lawson, Joseph Furphy, Barbara Binton, they were the eminent realistic writers. Okay. And they prefer to talk about ordinary men and women of Australia. Okay. Now we see that we have found that gradually, mainly we are dealing with the second phase of Australian literature, Australian novel writing particularly. Now we see that these Australian writers have got a proper direction to write. They've got proper perspective to write. Okay, and we see that how we are moving from realism to modernism. We saw how Australian realism and modernism, they have explained the various questions arising out of what is exactly Australian novel, and what are the perspectives, what are the theories behind it. So we see that mainly we got aware that this is called the bush tradition. Okay, and these are the realist novel where they are talking about, where the writers are discussing in broadly about the about the sufferings, about the pain that people had to endure during the time. Okay, so and also what is to follow now is Patrick White and his novels, and we see how his novels are the greatest, one of the greatest in the history of Australian novels. Okay, so Patrick White is basically a modernist novelist. Okay, and I think if you have read British literature, you saw that from early 20th century, modernist novels came into being, especially in the European countries, and it settled down. Modernism settled down in 1920s. It was at its peak in 1920s. Okay, and modernism actually stood as a rejection of traditionalism. Okay, whatever, in whatever area, art, science, politics, religion, whatever, area, you find that it was just contrary to tradition. But if you see Australian modernism, that is not so. They are adding modernist perspective, but they are still staying stuck to their tradition. Okay, they are addressing the issues of the aborigines. They are very much concerned with the issues and problems of the aboriginal people, of the natives of the place. Okay, so although they talk about the modern issues or the the problems of the contemporary life, but still they want to preserve the tradition, which they feel is very rich and unique in the whole domain of the world. Okay. Now, if you see Patrick White broadly, then we find that he is one of the most prominent writers from Australian modernist writings. Okay, and he in his novels he broadly explores the spiritual domains okay of Australian life, and then he he shifts to the reader's perspective. Okay, and then he goes on exploring with the modern with what modernity means in terms of Australian lands. Okay, so White's novel, if you see, then it has got a very new, fresh, and contemporary themes. Okay, and if you see his writings, his basic themes are detachment, and he talks about moving insights. Okay, so here you see that Patrick White works by impression. Okay, he doesn't see the detail, but he sees what impression the things and events have on one's life. Okay, so in many of his works, you will find modernism. You will find the creative and the artistic um, genius of a modernist writer. Okay, then you will see how beautiful technique and form, material and manner he is adding to his writing. Okay, so you will find his novels to be a fine piece of art. Okay, and which has got all the aspects of modernism in it. So, I earlier told you that modernism didn't mean rejection of tradition in Australian domain. Similarly, Patrick White also did not reject tradition completely. Okay, but he tried to use tradition to the best of its ability. He built his work. Okay, but he tried to be little cynical, little doubtful about all the uh, myths, all the mythical aspects he tried to to criticize upon. He Although he was very metaphysical, psychological in its in his impact, but still, what was what you call superstition, that was called out by Patrick White. Okay, so for Patrick White, modernistic writing means what kind of writing one should do, what should be the aim of what's writing, what should be the kind of, how should one express one's emotion at the then context. Okay, so here you can see, just like other Australian modernist writers, he uses traditions, he uses historical events, he uses certain nationalistic ideologies. Okay, and he tried to mingle all these ideas and try to form a new form in his writings. Okay, that is why his writings are best examples of modernist reinterpretation of historical materials, which means that he did not reject history. He accepted history, but he tried to, reinterpret history in its new form. Okay, so that's why he is one of the pioneering figures in the history of Australian literature. All right, and especially in the 19th century, and when the colonization has already got over, and now when Australia was looking to fresh perspectives, fresh ideas were accepted. towards the development of Australia as a whole. Okay, now we'll discuss some of Patrick White's writing because it is important. He is a very important writer in the Australian domain. Patrick White was born on May 28, 1912. Okay, in a place called Knightsbridge. Okay, in England, but his parents were Australian. Okay, now when he was only 6 months old, his parents went away to Australia and they settled in Sydney. So initially they were in England, but when he was just 6 months, they moved from England to Australia and they settled in Sydney. Uh, so they were not that high class people. They were from farmer family from a place called Somerset in England. Okay, so they were common people, working class people from Somerset, England, but they moved to Australia when he was just 6 months old. Okay, now if you see Patrick White, then he had the problem of asthma. Okay, he had that breathing issues. He had asthma. He was asthmatic, so he was sent to school when he was 13 years old. Okay, now he had spent very miserable 4 years in a colonial school in a colonial English school. And when he was 16 years old, he traveled to Europe. Okay, and he went to Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden also. He moved around during that time. And when he was 18 years old, he also started working. Okay, first he worked in the southern New South Wales. Okay, in the property of his uncle. Uh, Then again he continued with his study. He went to King's College, Cambridge. Okay, and in King's College, Cambridge, he came to he started reading French and German literature. So this was a kind of opportunity for him when he got abreast with French and German literature. Alright. So now he finally decided that he will stay in London and he will become a writer. Now, it was the time of war in North America in 1941. Patrick White met a Greek officer called Melanie Lascaris, who became his partner for the rest of his life. So they jointly wrote three novels and one play. Okay, with his partner, he wrote three novels and one play. So once he was back in Australia, in Sydney, his writing got immensely transformed, and it now showed that he's maturing as a writer. So now, after getting back to Sydney, he writes The Dream of Man, published in 1955 in Sydney. Then he went on to write a lot of other masterpieces, one after another. Was a masterpiece, VOSS, published in 1957. Riders in the Chariot, published in 1961. Okay, The VV Sector, another novel written in 1970. And I think last class I was telling you, he won Nobel Prize for Literature in 1973. Okay, and why did he win Nobel Prize for Literature? Because he is writing the committee who decide who is going to get the award. They said that he had very nicely given a psychological narrative art. Okay, and that was a new area in literature, given a psychological narrative to his artistic talent. Okay, now after winning Nobel Prize, also he writes uh, a wide variety of creative pieces. He wrote many poems, novels, short stories, and plays. If you It is very important for you to note that White's writings are metaphysical and lyrical. Mainly his poetries are metaphysical and lyrical. Okay, they talk about landscapes, and he talks about psychological sensibilities, okay, in the minds of the people. Now we will go through two three important writings, and then I'll explain to you today's novel, The Tree of Man. Now, his first novel was called Happy Valley. It was published in 1939. Okay, so it is his debut novel, and the setting of the novel is New South Wales. Okay, and here it shows a lot of impact of D.H. Lawrence and Thomas Hardy. It shows a lot of influence in his life of D.H. Lawrence and Thomas Hardy. Okay, now these were the initial works, so you find a lot of influence from European writers. But his later novels, you will see, they were more Australian based. The themes were very much rooted to his own country. Now, okay, the next novel is of Patrick White is The Living and the Dead. It is his second book. It was published in 1941. Okay, now, he wrote this novel when he was in the United Kingdoms, and then when he had moved to the United States. This was the initial years of World War II when he wrote The Living and the Dead, and here he has shown the lives of the desperate life standards of the people. Okay, and actually the setting here is London in 1930s. Okay, during World War II, the here he shows the difficulties of the people of the time. Okay, and he shows how relationships at that time were detached from each other. Okay, and how world was changing swiftly, and how relationships were getting more and more detached with each other. That is the basic theme of his second book, The Living and the Dead. Now, the third one is The Aunt's Story. This is another novel by Patrick White. Okay, now Aunt's Story depicts the story of a middle aged woman, Theodora Goodman. Okay, the protagonist is Theodora Goodman. It is, and she is the middle aged woman. So it shows that after the death of her mother, this lady Goodman, she travels to France and then she goes to America. And during her journey, uh, she feels some kind of spiritual revelation, which is why she gets a mental breakdown. Now, his fourth novel is The Tree of Man. Okay. Actually, this is a domestic drama, and it shows the lives of Parker family. Okay. And how their fortunes are changing over decades, over time. And the novel The Tree of Man, it deals with Australian folklore and cultural myth. And it tries to uh, you know uh, talks about Australian bush, means the hardships that people faced at that time. So apart from this, the Tree of Man also traces cultural traditions, ideologies, okay, and how Western civilization uh, y- uh, had backseated Australian society in general. Another masterpiece comes VOSS, published in 1957. Now, VOS is based on a real event. Okay, the life of 19th century Prussian explorer and naturalist. This explorer and naturalist comes from Prussia, and was is a real life story of this explorer. So this the name of the explorer is Ludwig Lichard. Okay. Now, what happens to this explorer is that he disappears during one expedition when he comes to Australia. He vanishes, he disappears somewhere when he's coming to the Australian lands. Now, students, this were in very, very, precise manner. I gave you the summary of few important novels. Now we will go to the main aspect of the novel. That is, I'll explain to you his novel, most important novel, The Tree of Man, how it became important, what is the theme, what are the special aspects that we will do. Just give me 2 minutes I'm getting back. Okay, now we shall see. I'm back. Now we shall see in detail um, White's novel, The Tree of Man. We'll discuss this in quite detail. We'll see what are the aspects. I'll interpret this for you, and we'll discuss a brief summary of the Tree of Man as well, and how it is important for the time, for the domain of Australia. That also we shall see. Now, The Tree of Man is Patrick White's first major work, okay, that got international acclaim. It was published in 1955. Now, the novel is Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman means self-realization, or you can say the novel of growth. When the protagonist mm, feels growth within him, he grows, okay, he gets a better person, he understands himself. That is what is Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman, 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 okay. And the novel shows the life of a farming couple, okay, a couple who are farmers, namely Stan and Amy. Okay, these are the couple Stan, Stan, and Amy Parker. Okay, this is the Parker family, Stan and Amy. Okay, and the story discusses the difficulties that they face when they come to settle in the remote and uninhabited inland districts of New South Wales, Australia. Okay, so what are the difficulties that they are facing, the hardships that they are facing while they are settling in New South Wales of Australia, is the basic theme of The Tree of Man. Okay, so the novel is about the expansion of both Stan Parker's consciousness, okay, and how he struggles through the uninhabited uninhabited village, how he struggles through that. The village that he first settles is initially an uninhabited village, but later it turns into a town. Okay, now, if you see the story, if you see the novel, it shows us a huge story of Australian wilderness. Okay, most of the place where in wilderness, and many of these suburban area, where had no uh, standards of living in the face of modernity and industrialization. So the novel here you will find it consists of 26 chapters, and they are divided into four parts. Okay, they're in all 26 chapters and they're divided into four parts. Okay, and it is showing how these immigrants they come and how they settle in this isolated area. Okay, and how they struggle from youth to old age. Okay, in the youth they see this to be an uninhabited village, but later how with time it converts into a town. Okay, and also you will see a little bit religious undertone. Okay, the biblical undertone is there, and it is written in epic style. Okay, so the overall story, if you see read, it is not only about Stan Parker's journey towards spiritual self discovery, but it is also about economic and social transformation that were happening in 20th century Australia. That I already told you, the economical development actually is depicted through the transformation of a village into a town where they are living. Now, this title, "The Tree of Man," the whole overall title is "The Tree of Man as a Life Sentence on Earth." Okay, this is the whole title. So the novel here uh, is an outcome of the writer's self doubt. Okay, White's self doubt is depicted in this novel. Okay, and you know how he felt when he returned back to Australia in 1947, when you know when he was living in a place called Castle Hill. It was usually a farming and animal raising land. So how he felt at that time, that is broadly means he had a lot of self doubt, and you know he had a lot of uh, problems in settling here. So that kind of self doubt and self recovery has been depicted in this novel, The Tree of Man. Okay, so it wonderfully shows White's own experience of enjoying the sleepy morning smell of cows. Okay, or when she sees how you know people they have their day to day chores, how they work, or how is their lifestyle. So you know sometimes he had enjoyed also those moments. That is also very nicely portrayed in this novel. uh, so this natural and simplistic life is also beautifully portrayed by White. Okay, so when he had returned to Australia after World War II, you know, in England at that time there was a lot of chaos and disturbance. But when he came to the silent places of Australia, he found a lot of comfort and lot of silence and peace in this part of the land. Okay, and here he found that this is ideal Australia. Okay, very calm, very comfortable. Though you have to work hard for your survival. It is an isolated land, not many people live here. Okay, but this kind of silence and solitude was also very peaceful, very inspiring, very much helpful for self respect, self retrospection, and self discovery. Okay, so the novel here you will see it doesn't only reflect Australian emptiness but also shows the social life. Okay, it also reflects the religious intensity and metaphysical characteristic of the novel. Okay, so you will see, you will find Patrick White not only being you know talking about not only being a part of Bush narrative, but also he's highly religious with the undertone of metaphysical intensity. Okay, now let's have a look at the. This was the analysis. Now let's have a look at the novel. We'll see. We'll find. We'll see the story of the novel. So here, as I told you, the protagonist is Stan Parker. He is the son of Noakes and Ned Parker. Okay. So who are they? Uh, uh, Stan Parker. Now his father is Novex and mother is Ned Parker. Okay, and he's a drunkard. mm, um, blacksmith, and he decides to settle after the death of his parents. Now he decides that he should settle, and in Australia he will settle at the end of, this was the period of end of 19th century. So he builds a farm out of the bushes, and his mother, before her death, she had told him that his father owned a piece of arid land, okay, in the hills. All right. Her mother said that father owns a land, arid land in the hills, and now Stan Parker resolves to settle there. Okay, the land that belonged to his father. So when his mother dies, he goes and settles there. He clears all the bushes in that land. Okay, he clears the trees, and he builds for himself a small and comfortable house. And that place is completely uninhabited. Nobody lives there. Okay, so here you will see that the novel not only portrays the development of man, how he grows, okay, but also the growth of an uninhabited land to a town. Okay, so the growth of Stan Parker's body and soul is at the same time, is alongside showing, depicting the expansion of this uninhabited land. Okay. Now, this Stan Parker marries after settling down in this part of the land, in this part of Australia. He now plans to marry. So, he marries a girl called Amy Fibbens. Okay, Amy, Amy Fibbens, Fibbens, and both of them settle down there in that place. Okay, and as you can see that this is an uninhabited land. Nobody lives. Just one male and one female, so they appear to be the Adam and Eve of that uninhabited land. So both of them together, they clear the bush, they make a comfortable house. Okay, they raise cows. So they, with lots of hardships, and they try to settle in that land. Okay, so this is what exactly is the bush life. Okay, where you have to face drought, where you can face flood, where you can face bushfires as well. Okay, so slowly when what happens as the years pass, there are more settlements in this area. More and more people come to this land. Okay, and this land earlier had no name, but now gradually, as it is growing, it acquires a name called Duril Gai, Durilgai, Duril Gai. And now gradually, as years pass, um, as years pass by, a post office also is built, and few stores are also being built here. Okay, now the Parker family's life, which was initially very difficult, which was very much pastoral life, okay, where only these two couple lived in harmony and peace together, although they had hardships for existence, but they were at peace living with the natural wilderness. Okay, they were just like Adam and Eve of that place. Now that peace, that tranquility is being replaced by symbols of development, urbanization, and modernity. See how White attaches tradition with modernity. Now Stan and Amy Parker, they they get two children, Ray and Thelma. Okay, they give birth to two children, Ray, Ray, and Thelma, Thelma. Now, with the passage of time, both the couple and children grow. They grow. Okay, and when as Ray and Thelma grow up, they when they are young people, they leave this place and they go to the city. They move from this wilderness, then they go to the city. Okay, and Ray disappears somewhere to explore the world. Okay, and he wants to make a fortune, so he goes out of Australia. Okay, but soon he gets involved in racial scandals. Okay, racism was very high, and he gets himself involved in racial scandals, and later Ray is murdered also. Okay. So Ray is one of the child of these two couple. Okay, of Stan and Amy. Okay, Stan and Amy's children are Ray and Thelma. Ray goes out and he wants to explore, but he's involved in a racial scandal and he's murdered. Okay, now Thelma also moves to city. Okay, I attends a business school and becomes very efficient office assistant, and later marries her wealthy boss. Okay, uh, Dudley Fosdyke. So she becomes successful, she studies hard, and she marries a rich man. And here in the village, Stan and Amy Parker, they have become very old, but until their old age, they're still farming and they're living there. Okay, they're working hard just like they used to do, and they live in the same location. Okay, but this location is no more isolated part, but it has become a suburb of a large city. There's a large city, and close to that is the village, so it becomes a town, a suburban town. So the novel overall ends with Stan Parker's grandson. Okay, Stan Parker's grandson is remembering his dead grandfather. Stan is dead, and grandson is remembering his grandfather. Okay, in the occasion in the outset of Bushfield Lane. Okay, so this area remains a virgin bushland, which Stan Parker had cleared with his axe. Okay, so this is the overall idea of the tree of a man. Now, how is love and sexuality shown, depicted, that we'll discuss. Now, if you see Stan and Amy Parker, they are metaphorical Adam and Eve. They start a new life in a virgin bushland. They are ordinary farmers. Okay, and but you can see that White has not romanticized them. Okay, he doesn't romanticize their conjugal life, what they do in their personal life. No, he talks about their love, but he talks about their their perfection in their work, how satisfied and content they are amid a lot of hard work. Okay, but and still how they remain united in the flesh. See, please mark this, this is not about romanticizing, but this is about the reality of their existence. Okay, means they did not have any sort of quarrel or discrepancy, rather they felt themselves a part of united flesh. Okay, this is how love and sexuality was shown by White. Okay, so he could have depicted a random outburst of sexual passion. Okay, Stan and Amy are deeply passionate and sexually attracted. He doesn't show anything of that sort. Okay, okay, but instead, they were not able to communicate each other's love properly. Okay, so to some extent there was a coldness in their marriage, but it doesn't have any bitterness. Okay, so this was natural for their existence, and this is how they lived in not so beautiful isolated place. Okay, if you see Amy, then Amy, you will find she's not so beautiful. Okay, an ordinary woman, but very practical woman. Okay, and she's very greedy for love in terms of emotion. Okay, so emotion and feelings. Amy, you can say that is a spirit of Stan. Okay. So you can say that Amy is the body and Stan is the soul. Okay, and her love for Stan is not without selflessness. She is also selfish for her love towards Stan. Okay, um, and she always expects complete possession of her husband. She wants her husband just to be hers. Okay, so here you see, for Amy, for this woman, there is nothing metaphysical about it, but she wants the whole of her husband. Okay, but Stan fails his relationship with Amy. Okay, uh, he doesn't
Amy. But however, whatever is the matter, these are very small issues. Till the end they stay together. Okay, and they remain impact together. So here love is not something romantically depicted. Here it shows that although they had their weaknesses, they had their own shortfalls, but still they stay together. So Stan and Amy Parker, uh, you know though they have a lot of incompleteness in their spiritual life, okay, but still there's something that till their end it keeps them together. They work together, they eat together, they stay together. Okay. So this is the overall idea of the novel, the whole gist, the whole interpretation of the novel. Now let me just see whatever is important for you that I'll discuss and in today's class. Yeah, this is important that Tree of Man, it is narrated in the third person. Third person means he, she, her, he is, in that way it is depicted the whole story. Okay. And the narrator here is omniscient, means present everywhere, is seeing everything. Okay. From from a distant perspective. Okay. Staying distant from the main characters, he just goes on narrating their experiences, the experience of Stan and Amy. Okay, so here you see that the narrator is recording the thoughts and feelings of Stan and Amy Parker. Okay, and here you can see that White is also using the stream of consciousness technique to describe what passes through the mind of the protagonist. Protagonist is silent, but the narrator could read the mind of the protagonist and he expresses it in the lines. That is stream of consciousness technique. Okay. Now, White also he prefers interior monologue, just like Virginia Woolf. Okay, just like Virginia Woolf and talks, there's an interior monologue, means the character is silent but is thinking something, and that thought is depicted in the novel. So that is what is interior monologue. That Virginia Woolf had speciality in it, and White is influenced, and he uses the same technique, just like Virginia Woolf. Okay, so overall you see that White was a Nobel Prize winner, and this novel is very much special, and because his perspectives are special, uh, because the jury in the selection board of Nobel Prize, they caught it, they said that it is psychological narrative art. Okay, and this is new, a new continent is writing, Australia is writing, and that is why it is very much special and very much different. Okay. So what I told you is that what theory I had told you earlier is depicted here, that you see these are the indigenous inhabited land. Okay, where Stan and Amy start their life. Okay, so although it is a modernist novel, but you see the indigenous impact being there, and you see that they are the first settlers. They are coming and they are settling in this uninhabited land, and how gradually it gets the uh, uh, gets township and it gets development. Okay, and why does it develop? Because it is just at the suburb of a big city. So when big city depicts industrialization, modernism, so the impact of the big city also gradually arrives in their land. Okay, and that is why they said to have a very um, satisfactory life here, free life here, full of nature's bounty, whereas the urban life always has discontent. Because how can you say, you can say this because when their son Ray goes to the city, he gets entangled in racial disturbances, and finally is murdered. So there is discontent in the city, whereas in their life, which is away from the city, which was once uninhabited, was quite peaceful, was quite, quite silent, was quite away from violence and discrepancies. Okay, so these are the contraries that they are saying, that although Australia was settling, although people were having hardships, but this isolated tract of lands were peaceful to live in. Okay, despite you had bush realities, despite you have to struggle hard for your existence, but they were in themselves a consolation. You had peace in living, and when you live like Adam and Eve. Okay, away from the din, away from the crowd, away from disturbances. But once you get trapped into that urban life, then you're gone, you're completely gone. Okay, so the son finally is murdered, and the daughter is also lost in that in that kind of city life by marrying a rich husband. Okay, so this was all about White, all his theories and the novels and the perspective that already discussed. Do remember the main issue, the main theories inside the novel Stream of Consciousness, that is adapted from the English novels, and second is Bildungsroman, that is growth of the self, the inner self, the spiritual self. Okay, now with this, the class comes to an end. I stop my class today. Tomorrow, we shall continue with the, not tomorrow, but most probably day after tomorrow, we'll be continuing with the next block, and with the next phase also, maybe, of Australian novels. So, till then, have good time. I log out here.